For foreign heirs, probate in Vietnam is not a simple administrative step. It is a structured legal process governed by the Civil Code, the law on notarization, procedural law in contested cases, and sector-specific regulations such as land and housing law. Understanding this framework is essential before initiating any transfer. The first step in probate procedure in Vietnam is determining whether inheritance follows a valid will or statutory succession. If a will exists, its validity must be reviewed. If not, Vietnamese statutory inheritance rules apply automatically. If the will was drafted in Vietnam, compliance with domestic formalities is examined. If it is a foreign will, document authentication through consular legalization and certified Vietnamese translation are required before it can be used in inheritance procedures. Without proper authentication, the document cannot serve as a legal basis for transfer in Vietnam. Probate in Vietnam requires specific documentation: death certificate, proof of relationship, identity documents, property ownership certificates, and in some cases marital status confirmation. Foreign documents must be legalized and translated. If all heirs agree and no dispute exists, the matter can proceed through a notarial inheritance declaration. If disagreement arises regarding validity, entitlement, or asset division, court proceedings become necessary. The path diverges significantly at this stage. In uncontested cases, heirs appear before a Vietnamese notary. The notary verifies documentation, reviews legal compliance, and prepares a declaration of inheritance. This document forms the basis for asset transfer. In notarial inheritance procedures, the notary office typically conducts a public notice at the People's Committee of the deceased's last place of residence. This allows potential heirs to raise objections within the prescribed period. Failure to complete this step can create future legal vulnerability. If disputes arise, the case proceeds to court. Vietnamese courts assess will validity, forced heirship claims, and asset classification. Court probate significantly extends timeline and increases cost. Once inheritance rights are confirmed, asset-specific transfer procedures begin. For real estate, land registration authorities must update ownership records. For bank accounts, financial institutions require separate compliance steps. Land use rights and housing ownership require formal registration change. Without updated registration, the heir cannot legally sell or mortgage the property. Administrative compliance is not optional. Foreign heirs may face statutory restrictions on certain categories of property ownership in Vietnam. If ineligible to retain ownership under housing or land regulations, disposal or restructuring of the asset may be required in accordance with applicable law. This compliance issue should be assessed at an early stage of the probate process. Inheritance may trigger personal income tax obligations or administrative fees. Close relatives often benefit from exemptions under Vietnamese tax law. Proper classification affects cost exposure. Uncontested probate through notarization may take several months depending on documentation readiness. Contested probate through court can extend significantly longer. Cross-border elements add procedural delay. Foreign heirs residing abroad commonly appoint representatives in Vietnam. Powers of attorney must be properly legalized and translated. Defective authorization is one of the most frequent procedural obstacles. Common errors in cross-border probate include assuming that foreign probate orders automatically apply in Vietnam, failing to authenticate and translate documents properly, and overlooking compulsory heirship protections. Each of these mistakes increases procedural delay and litigation exposure. In multinational estates, probate may occur simultaneously in different jurisdictions. Vietnamese authorities operate independently of foreign courts. Parallel coordination is often required. Many probate complications stem from lack of coordinated estate planning. Separate Vietnamese wills or asset structuring can simplify future probate. Prevention reduces administrative burden. Probate procedure in Vietnam is manageable, but procedural discipline is essential. Documentation, compliance, and sequencing determine efficiency. Early legal review significantly reduces uncertainty. Recognition as an heir is only the first step. In Vietnam, legal ownership transfers only after completion of probate and registration procedures. For foreign heirs, clarity and compliance transform a complex process into a controlled one. If you are a foreign heir dealing with assets in Vietnam, do not treat probate as a routine administrative step. Inheritance procedure requires authentication of documents, identification of compulsory heirs, compliance with notarial formalities, and proper registration of ownership. To ensure structured sequencing and minimize delay, contact LTS Law at lts.com.vn for coordinated probate guidance. In Vietnam, title transfers only when legal procedure is completed correctly. Clarity and compliance transform complexity into control.